Tonight, a stormy start to the weekend. Thunderstorms in the south. The nation's busiest airport hammered. Cancellations rippling nationwide.
It was weather that caused hundreds of cancellations on Delta. A lot of people are frustrated here. Now it could impact you.
Severe weather spinning off this huge tornado near Bismarck, North Dakota. The heat and humidity surging again for millions. Also tonight, Senate scramble.
I'm Nicole Killian on Capitol Hill, where senators work around the clock to try to deliver the president his big, beautiful bill. What's tucked inside the massive package?
Final farewell. Mourners honor Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark 2 weeks after their murders. Iran holds a state funeral for top commanders and nuclear scientists. CBS's MTS Tayeb is there.
Well, we're here in Tehran's Revolutionary Square, and the people we've been speaking to have told us just how angry they are, not just at Israel, but at the United States.
New despair in Gaza.
I'm Deborah Patter in Jerusalem. More than 60 killed in Gaza, despite President Trump saying a truce could happen within a week.
And later, a wedding weekend in Venice. The buzz and the backlash. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday. We begin with severe weather and its impact on a wide swath of the country. The weekend started with this taunting sight in North Dakota, a huge tornado looming over the city of Bismarck. Fortunately, no damage reported, but it's been a nightmare for anyone flying through Atlanta. Hundreds of flights have been canceled due to thunderstorms and damage from hail. CBS's Dave Malkoff is there and leads us off tonight. Dave, good evening.
Hi, Jerika. Yeah, the people did not expect to be sleeping in the tunnels that go underneath the airport here, but that's exactly what happened when the weather turned rough and air traffic controllers had to evacuate for safety. Lightning flashed over the world's busiest airport, an intense thunderstorm hammering the Atlanta area late Friday night, forcing the cancellation of more than 800 flights.
All the lines are long, everybody looks stressed out. You can definitely tell a lot of people on the walls probably missed their flights, delayed, whatever, so definitely doesn't look like a good situation.
Delta today inspecting its jets for possible damage.
So it was like little stones hitting the aircraft.
This passenger heard the hail hit her plane as it landed. She and others slept curled up under this darkened canopy of art overnight.
It was completely full. There were people, literally no space between people, like on both sides, all the way from one end to the other.
So we got here yesterday at 5 p.m.
Janet and Don Riome from Vancouver are at their wits' end as they try to get their holidays started.
Everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's frustrated and angry, and yeah, it's been a lot.
Yeah, Delta says that they have inspected all of these planes, they have put them back into service, but they do expect this ripple effect to keep on going throughout the weekend. And Jerika, with 4 million passengers expected to pass through here, they're going to need every single plane, right?
Yeah, I feel for those passengers. Dave Malkoff, thank you. Tonight, new weather trouble with heat and humidity surging once again. Let's check in with CBS News meteorologist Andrew Kozak in Philadelphia. Andrew.
Yeah, Jerika, good evening. For some areas, storms starting to wind down within the next few hours, but for others, like the upper Midwest, the northern plains, we're still going to be dealing with showers and storms. Areas like Minneapolis overnight and into your Sunday. Also, the Northeast, including Pennsylvania. And that's where I want to start tonight, where we have showers and thunderstorms that will move. Areas like Philadelphia between 8 and 9 o'clock. That does wind down, though, once we get past 10 p.m. But a different story for areas like the Dakotas over toward Minneapolis. Showers and thunderstorms packing a punch even into the wee hours of Sunday. An isolated tornado not out of the question. Tomorrow, that area of storms moves a little closer to areas like Chicago, a little further east. Non-severe showers and storms in the south, and hot and dry weather returns for the northeast. Hot off the presses tonight, Tropical Depression 2 has formed in the Bay of Campeche. West-northwest winds right now at around 7 miles per hour. The movement here, we're going to keep our eye on it as the tropics heat up. And before we go, the heat is going to return big time for the east as we head closer to July 4th. forth. Jerika?
Andrew Kozak, thank you. To Capitol Hill now. Tonight, the Senate is putting in extra hours to kickstart President Trump's legislative agenda. Overnight, Republicans released their full bill containing tax and spending cuts that could impact millions of Americans. In a post tonight, Elon Musk says it will destroy U.S. jobs and cause strategic harm. CBS's Nicole Killian joins us with the very latest. Nicole, where do things stand right now?
Hey, good evening, Jerika. President Trump's signature bill faces a major test here in the Senate as Republicans work to secure enough votes to get it over the finish line. A rare Saturday session in the Senate.
We have before us today a once-in-a-generation opportunity to deliver legislation to create a safer, stronger, and more prosperous America.
Senate Republicans are trying to pull a fast one on the American people.
Lawmakers work through their holiday recess, racing to meet a July 4th deadline to advance President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill. The president stayed in town, too, golfing with senators, urging them to tee it up.
Taking a longer, but we'd like to get it done.
Overnight, Senate Republicans released the 900-plus page bill, which includes more funding for the president's top priorities, including border security, defense, and an extension of his 2017 tax cuts. But it comes with deep spending cuts to food assistance and Medicaid, including a projected $930 billion reduction, according to the Congressional Budget Office.
What they're trying to do to cut back on these health care programs and health insurance for 16 million Americans to pay for tax breaks for wealthy people.
Even some Republicans have threatened to oppose the package, citing concerns about the potential impact to rural hospitals. But others say it's time to act.
Are we done? Are we ready to put our pens down and move forward?
To address some of those GOP concerns, the bill now includes a $25 billion rural hospital fund. It also rolls back clean energy tax credits from the Biden era, angering Democrats. In fact, they hope to slow this vote down by demanding that the entire bill be read on the Senate floor, which could take up to 15 hours. Jerika?
Yeah, over 900 pages. I imagine it would. Nicole Killian, thank you. Today, a private funeral for Minnesota state lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark. The couple, as you may recall, along with the family's dog, were gunned down at their home 2 weeks ago in what police are investigating as a politically motivated attack. CBS's Caroline Cummings is outside the Basilica of St. Mary's in Minneapolis.
Minnesota remains a state in shock, Jerika. Over 1,000 people attended the funeral, including state lawmakers from both sides of the aisle. Mourners stood as the caskets for Melissa and Mark Hortman were brought to the church altar.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the lives of Melissa and Mark Hortman.
Former President Joe Biden and former Vice President Kamala Harris were in attendance. Governor Tim Walz honored Melissa Hortman for her 2 decades of public service.
Melissa Hortman will be remembered as the most consequential speaker in Minnesota history.
A solemn procession followed, with Walz presenting the Hortman children the flags that flew over the state capitol the day their parents were killed.
She used her power to give a voice to people who didn't feel like they had a voice, and I hope that's how she's remembered.
Thousands turned out at the Minnesota Capitol on Friday, where the couple was lying in state. Next to them, their beloved dog, Gilbert. The golden retriever was severely wounded in the attack and had to be euthanized.
I'm sad and I'm angry, and I wanted to come and stand quietly for a moment and appreciate them.
The Hortmans were gunned down at their home 2 weeks ago. The suspect, Vance Belter, accused of impersonating a police officer and wearing a mask. Prosecutors say he also shot and seriously wounded Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. A manhunt for his arrest lasted 2 days. Police say Belter had a hit list of 45 elected officials, all Democrats. He made a second federal court appearance yesterday, telling the judge he hasn't slept in 14 days. His lawyer complaining lights are on around the clock and his client doesn't have a pillow. State lawmakers we spoke to after the funeral say they are heartbroken, Jerika. They vow to work harder to put politics aside and find a shared humanity.
So sad. Caroline Cummings in Minneapolis, thank you. Overseas now, today, Iran held a state funeral for prominent people killed during that 12-day war with Israel. Thousands turned out in Tehran. Among the dead, top military commanders and at least 11 nuclear scientists. CBS's Imtiaz Tayeb is there and filed this report.
Well, we're here in Tehran's Revolutionary Square, and this is perhaps one of the largest gatherings that has taken place here in the Iranian capital since that 12-day war with Israel ended in a ceasefire. And the people we've been speaking to have told us just how angry they are that so many Iranians were killed in Israeli strikes. And many here also saying how angry they are that Israel targeted Iranian academics and scientists connected to the nuclear program. And I can hear people are chanting, "Death to America." And it really just underscores how they're directing their anger not just at Israel, but at the United States, who they say enabled a war in which over 600 Iranians were killed. Imtiaz Tayeb, CBS News, Tehran.
Today, life in Gaza again proved lethal. The Hamas-run health ministry says Israeli strikes killed at least 80 Palestinians and wounded 400 others. CBS's Deborah Pata reports tonight from Jerusalem.
Good evening, Jerika. There is renewed hope that the ceasefire in Iran could lead to one in Gaza. But even as President Trump indicated there could be a truce within the next week, Israeli forces launched a series of strikes overnight on Gaza City.
A ceasefire may be inching closer, but Gaza City was trapped in a pit of despair following overnight Israeli airstrikes, which blasted this massive crater right in the middle of a makeshift camp sheltering displaced Palestinians. Rescue workers dug frantically, retrieving at least 5 tents as they searched for the people who had been living in them. It was mostly the limp bodies of children pulled from the rubble. 12 people died, 10 between the ages of 1 and 11, according to eyewitnesses. In a second strike nearby, there were desperate attempts to revive those who'd been trapped. Many died of suffocation. When morning came, everyone lent a hand trying to save what they could. Here in Gaza, we are buried twice, said Zayed Jaber, first while alive, and then when we are dead. His children are still in hospital in a critical condition. At the morgue, families bent over with grief, prepared to bury their dead. Among them, tiny bodies wrapped in shrouds. This distraught father had kept his children safe for nearly 2 years of war. Now this. Palestinians who were living here have nowhere else to go after being repeatedly displaced. It's enough, said Naveen Al-Tlouli. Please stop the war. Feel our pain. Let the children live.
Gaza's health ministry says more than 60 people died in the strikes, Jerika. And the IDF says they were targeting a senior Hamas leader who was also killed.
Deborah Pata, thank you for your reporting. Today, the Pride Parade in Budapest, Hungary was bigger than ever. Over 100,000 people took to the streets of the capital defying a government ban issued by Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Straight ahead on the CBS Weekend News, the couple and their wedding taking Venice by storm. Then later, a story about real-life teddy bears.
I'm Danya Backus in Ramona, California, where bear costumes like this one are helping to keep a rescue cub wild.
Today in Venice, Italy, hundreds of protesters took to the streets saying kisses yes and no to Jeff Bezos. The floating city is where the Amazon billionaire married Lauren Sanchez in an extravagant wedding. Tonight, the newlyweds are celebrating with guests at a final party. For more on the buzz and the backlash, here's CBS's Elizabeth Palmer.
Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez tied the knot in Venice, a gorgeous Italian backdrop for an American extravaganza. With water taxis instead of limos, and a guest list that included 200 of the couple's closest A-list friends. The Kardashians, Tom Brady, Usher, Oprah, and Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner. Masked paparazzi vied for celebrity shots. Some, like Tommy Hilfiger, made it easy. Some, like Leonardo DiCaprio, did not. All week, there had been protests ranging from the bizarre to the blunt. Critics say Amazon should pay higher taxes. Locals blame it for forcing small shops out of business. And many just object to the opulence of a blowout party for the 1%. Wealth doesn't get more conspicuous than this. The yachts, the couture, the bride's diamonds. How much is it costing? We don't know, but tens of millions. For tourists, it was all part of the spectacle, right down to the Bezos impersonator in St. Mark's Square. After exchanging vows yesterday on the island of San Giorgio, the Bezos Sanchezes are throwing a final party today. And tomorrow, everyone heads home, leaving barely a ripple in a city which has seen the famous and their fortunes come and go for more than 1,000 years. Elizabeth Palmer, CBS News, London.
Still ahead on the CBS Weekend News, quick action to save the life of a newborn when we return. Tonight, we learned baseball all-star Dave Parker has died. The outfielder made his major league debut in 1973 with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Parker was the National League's MVP in 1978. He was set to be inducted into baseball's Hall of Fame next month. Dave Parker, who battled Parkinson's for more than a decade, was 74. Well, newly released body cam footage shows the rescue of a newborn infant in Phoenix, Arizona, who had been alone for several days.
The baby's here, dude, and the baby's still alive.
It happened last month. A concerned neighbor hadn't seen the mother for a while, so they alerted police. Police responded and found the child emaciated. Authorities discovered the body of the mother in the apartment. The medical examiner has not provided a cause of death for the mother, but the baby is expected to make a full recovery. This weekend, a slick attraction drawing people to Gloucester, Massachusetts. The Greasy Pole Contest is a tradition at a fair in honor of St. Peter, the patron saint of fishermen. Contestants try to get across a greased telephone pole to capture a flag at the end. Well, next on the CBS Weekend News, why wildlife workers went undercover to help a bear cub in need. But first, a look back at this day in history.
Decades ago, the U.S. government set out to save our national bird. Today, the eagle was officially taken off the list of threatened and endangered species.
Finally, bear with me on this one. Imagine trying to care for an orphaned bear cub. Where do you even start? Well, in tonight's Weekend Journal, CBS's Danya Backus tells us how wildlife caregivers in California came up with the bare necessities.
An adorable black bear cub acts like a typical toddler at play, climbing, fighting, and making a splash. All under the care of his faux fuzzy foster family, humans dressed as bears.
Bear cubs are really smart, they're very impressionable, so we never really wanted him to see us in our human form.
We met up with Autumn Welch, one of his costumed caregivers at the San Diego Humane Society's Ramona Wildlife Center. The cub, believed to be abandoned by his mom, was brought to its medical ward in April.
When the bear cub first arrived, we were caring for him around the clock. We stayed all night long, fed him every few hours.
When interacting with the cub, staffers suit up in a bear-scented fur coat, leather gloves, and a mask. A giant stuffed teddy bear is a surrogate mama. Bonding with a human would jeopardize his return to the wild.
We go to all lengths to take care of this little guy.
If the costume wasn't enough, right? Like you guys do everything.
We smell like bear, we sound like bear, we look like bear.
Caring for the cub that hasn't been named to avoid deeper attachment by caregivers costs about $200 a day. The Wildlife Center relies on donations for all its animals. The bear is thriving and growing more independent.
He's really good at entertaining himself. He plays, he explores, he climbs the trees, he plays with his stuffed animal. He's a happy, well-adjusted bear cub and still very wild.
Just days after our visit, a bittersweet bon voyage. The little guy found a new home, a wildlife center outside San Francisco with 2 bear cub buddies. It's hoped the cub will be released into the wild next spring and know how to survive.